say it was definitely a lot more hours that I was expected to study than I had realised. That was definitely a shock to the system. I would love to have known that in a bit more detail before I started.
I initially looked at my timetables, oh my god, I have so much free time, I can do so much stuff. And it wasn't until I think my second week in uni, I was like, actually no, I need to really spend some time like preparing for my lectures and writing up my notes afterwards.
It would have been nice to know kind of what year my flatmates were in, and I know maybe just a little bit about them. So it was quite awkward when we first got there, and obviously when you're a fresher that can be really daunting.
It's good to have like an idea of who you're living with, like their names, their course. For my uni, we kind of had a portal where you can kind of give an introduction for yourself, but it's optional, so most people didn't do it.
It would have been really nice to have known like where people are from, where everyone's moving in.
I wish my accommodation had introduced us to one another so you can get the awkward conversation out of the way. I did see that some of my friends' accommodation had group chats where they were able to text their flatmates, whereas with me, I kind of was blindsided.
It would be better if you already have some idea about where you can go out with friends to chill, to relax, and minimum cost for things like, for grocery shopping, for doing your laundry, for eating out.
At my first uni, when we got there in halls, we had like a welcome pack, and it did actually include things like how to do the waste properly and a map of places to go with your friends, and that was, so really helpful when we had that. So totally agree that more places should do that as standard.
And also things such as like transport and how much that would cost and how to get like through all the transport and get around everywhere. It's a new city and new transport system. It takes a lot of effort to try and figure out where you're going.
I thought it was harder than I thought, because I think if you didn't have a really good flat, you didn't really make friends with the people you lived with, and then it was kind of like, oh, you've got to make friends with the people in your course.
My first approach was to like just have a casual talk, basic introduction, following after that inviting my flatmates to dinner, so that would strengthen the bond further and maybe help each other with studies. So that's what I did.
You see your course friends a lot, it's much easier to make friends with them. I sort of found like the strongest friendships developing because if you see them day in, day out, it's a lot easier to keep in touch.
It was easy to have more friends in extracurricular activities. The university has meetings like coffee lunch for international students or coffee lunch for postgraduates or undergraduates, and those different activities. I think that it was the best place for me to get more friends.
We had a Facebook group chat. There was also like some freshers apps that people would recommend. They were quite helpful, but it just depends on how much people knew, because they weren't really told from the university. It was just you had to find it yourself.
Yeah, I did find there were a couple Facebook groups like available as a fresher, but they did have a lot of people in it, so you just couldn't really meet people that way.
I think in terms of the Facebook groups, they're usually either too large, so like too many people, so no one really wants to like interact because no one replies. So yeah, I think that's an issue.
I think the main way people from my uni met to discuss was by stuff like Student Room, where people would create the sort of spreadsheets, and then it was up to you to go out of your way to try and find them and then join the spreadsheet. It was quite self-found. The university didn't do a lot connecting.
Right now I have a studio, and when I was looking at the photos online, it was really nice, but they didn't mention that there were no lifts. They didn't mention that there was actually no windows in the building. So moving my stuff in was a hassle. So definitely visiting if you have the opportunity to do so.
I looked at what accommodation I could afford, and the university had photos on the website, but the photos were very misleading. I wish I'd gone for the slightly more expensive, because it would have been a lot nicer.
The uni definitely only advertises like the most expensive accommodation. So like no one at my uni got to look at the cheaper halls, which is the ones I went with, and thankfully I did really like it.
In terms of the university I study in, there are a lot more private accommodation compared to uni accommodation, so I think that's something people can look into as well, because usually private accommodation is cheaper. It's quite difficult to search for them because you don't really know which are trustworthy.
University accommodation really feels much safer, and because I'm from India, so I went to the website and there was a very good option to like Google images or satellite images. You can actually virtually go and visit the accommodation.
My dad was the most helpful when it came to this. He would always like call and just give advice where you should do your shopping, like just small things. I think he was very helpful in terms of I know that laundry does cost a lot for students. I don't think my uni or accommodation gave much notice. They did give like a rough estimate of how much you should be spending on shopping per week, but they didn't really indicate which supermarket you should be using, and just small things like that would have been helpful.
I feel like there could have been a lot more information about that and better sort of breakdowns of what students normally spend and things like that, because a lot of people do track their money and it wouldn't be that difficult to give information about it.
I wish I had a lot more budgeting advice before I started first year. Like the uni gave us a sheet with a vague amount of what students on average would spend, but if you added it up, it added up to way more than the loan you would actually get. You are encouraged to take up a lot of expensive activities and join a lot of societies, but then there's no budgeting advice on how to do that. It didn't work out how to budget at all until second year, and yeah, definitely would have preferred to have a lot more help with that. I would say definitely like prioritizing mental health. I know it can seem a bit like a cliche, but genuinely like mental health is so much more important than the grades. If you look after yourself, you will do better, and it's just way more important than I think a lot of people realised when I started.
I would say find some sort of routine or like something that keeps you in a way like grounded during the week, because if you sort of just do whatever you fancy throughout the whole year, it gets expensive, quite chaotic.
In regards to expectations, I would suggest not to set such high expectations for your social life in uni and to remain optimistic. When you go into uni saying that you're going to meet your long life friends and you don't, it kind of derails you. So I would say definitely be open-minded, and that if it doesn't go your way the first time, that's okay. You still have 3 years left of uni, and eventually you will find your people.
I would recommend maybe follow the Instagram or any other social media of the university, because then you see all the different activities that they offer, and follow the SU activities too.